Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Business Growth Roundtable. As our attendees enter from the waiting room, which does not seem to be happening, so let me just check on that real quick.
I see him coming in.
Oh, you see him coming in? Okay, good. All right. So as our attendees enter from the waiting room, we want to welcome all of you to this month's Business Growth Roundtable, and let me bring to the stage the one, the only, Anthony Arena.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna, for that intro. I really appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the New Jersey Business and Industry Association Business Growth Roundtable, on this Tuesday, Veterans Day. So thank you to all that have served our country. We are greatly appreciated for your services. Again, here we are on the 11th of November on this cold day. And here we are. We're thrilled to have everybody here, led by this talented and amazing group of women. For those of you who don't know anything about NJBIA, we are the nation's largest business association, representing about 1/4 of all New Jersey employees here. We help companies create jobs and want them to stay here in New Jersey. We also offer customized development opportunities through our signature events, our magazine, and of course, our podcast, TV show, and digital opportunities. We also have some great affinity programs on board here at NJBIA that you can check out on our website, njbia.org, like health with payroll, healthcare, 401k training, 401k solutions, HR support, and so forth. I am one of the executive leaders here at NJBIA, and I will put my information in the chat so you can feel free to reach out to me on anything regarding membership and sponsorship opportunities. And just a quick update, we do have two events taking place. We have our NJBIA Holiday Cheers and Awards Celebration taking place on December 3rd at the Molly Pitcher Inn. Come check it out online. And then we have our annual Public Policy Forum, which is always well served and extremely highly attended. That's going to be in January 30th at the Princeton Marital at Forrestal. So please feel free to reach out to me. And now I will turn it over to the dynamic Donna. Thank you so much.
Why, thank you, Anthony. Hello, everyone. I am Donna Miller. I am founder and chief visionary officer at C3 Works, where for over 30 years, we've been helping companies to accelerate their growth by providing business advisory support and services around operations, biz dev, and finance. We allow growing teams and businesses to work smarter by focusing on that which truly drives the business forward and moves the needle. Our clients know that by coming to us, we will help them to build systems that are efficient, connected, and executable, either by them or by us, thereby laying the foundation for building a company that runs and grows without them involved in every little detail, something I'm a little bit passionate about. So before we get started with our program, a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording, so take copious notes if you'd like, but you don't have to. You will get a follow-up email with the slides, at the recording, and you'll hear from our sponsors and our moderators here as well. I want to encourage you to use the chat to introduce yourself. You're in a virtual room with a bunch of people who are interested in what you're interested in, and that's a great foundation for networking and connecting. That said, please don't use the chat for questions. We will allow time at the end of our panel discussion for questions, and we would ask you to put that in the Q&A section of the Zoom call because it gets a little unwieldy. And last but not least, I want to mention that our December event on December, I can't remember what, so I'm going to look it up. It's the second December of the month.
December 18th.
Thank you.
No.
Is that the second?
Yeah, no, crap. December 9th.
Yeah, okay. See if we cover each other. So December 9th, we will be holding our annual, and gosh, I think this might be our 5th annual Economic Outlook. I will drop the link in the chat in just a moment. But, we're living in kind of a crazy climate economically and politically. So I'm super looking forward to attending that Economic Outlook and trying to incorporate that into my plans, both offensive and defensive, for 2026. So let me hand it to my co-host, Rachel Durkan, who will introduce herself, tell you a little bit about our sponsors.
Hello. Thank you, Donna. Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Durkan. I'm with Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web marketing, branding, and sales enablement agency that specializes in working with clients with a complex sale. So if you have a sales team and you want to help them to close more deals, shorten their sales cycle, and increase the number of qualified meetings that they are having, we can help you build a marketing to sales infrastructure to make that happen. And also, as Donna mentioned, this event would not be what it is without our sponsor. So first, I want to thank Summit Place Financial Advisors, who will be one of the speakers in the December event. They provide personalized, disciplined wealth management for high-achieving individuals facing complex investment, tax, and estate challenges. As an independent SEC-registered firm, they collaborate with trusted professionals to deliver holistic guidance free of commission, quotas, or hidden fees, always acting in your best interest. I also want to recognize Freeman Clark, who provides top-tier CIO, CTO, and CISO on a flexible part-time basis to help businesses grow faster, operate smarter, and stay secure. With decades of experience, their leaders bridge the gap between technology and business strategy, delivering immediate impact, cost-effective expertise, and long-term partnership without the overhead of full-time hires. Guys, this is critical in the world of AI coming now. You've got to have your technology and your infrastructure in the right place so you can compete in what's coming in this marketplace. So thank you to both of our sponsors for coming today. You will also receive information and offers from them after this event. And with that, Donna, I think we are ready to get started.
Awesome. So hang on, let me just drop this link in December. Okay, I just dropped the link for the December event in the chat. Not so good at doing two things at once anymore. But with that, let me bring Christine Bongard to the stage. Christine, come on and join us. So today we are here to talk about strategic partnerships. So before we get rolling, Rachel and I have had the opportunity to introduce ourselves. Christine, introduce yourself to our audience, if you would, please.
Sure, Donna, my friend. It's so good to be here. I'm excited about today's event. My name's Christine Bongard. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the WIT Network. We are a global network supporting women on their career journey. And so we provide everything from education, inspiration, technology training, leadership development, mentoring circles, networking for women. And it's been a true pleasure and honor to run this organization for the past 8 years. Prior to that, I was responsible for strategic alliances and partnerships for multiple companies in the tech space over the past 20 years, and really kind of my North Star and my passion for helping businesses to drive greater business outcomes through partnerships. So thanks for having me here and to be a part of the panel.
Excellent. I love it when someone takes their corporate career and then turns it into something that they're truly passionate about. And I think that's what, we're all doing is what is the skill set and how can we level up either to produce better results or to land ourselves in our dream job, because sometimes we have to create it. So
right.
Let's start with, strategic partnerships, why? It's kind of like a duh, but sometimes we need to articulate the duh so that people can connect with it. So, Rachel, when you think about creating strategic partnerships, why? Why are we creating strategic partnerships?
So every time I've ever called you Donna or a partner and said, I have an idea, and you're always like, oh shit,
Yes, that's my
I did that to Anthony the other day.
Shit, yay.
I was like, Anthony, I have an idea. And he's like, and he took my call anyway. But when I was thinking about this, I've actually done it at the worst of times every time. And it's always turned into a wild success that runs through the best of times. So for example, this roundtable, I called you and I said I had an idea. We started this in 2020. Worst of times, we've been doing it for 5 years and it's crushing it. Best of times, right? And so when you are thinking about why to do a strategic partnership, there's a number of benefits. But in my mind, first, it's a new way to increase lead generation without having to spend a huge amount of advertising dollars. So, I always believe in like the complex sale B2B environment. The best leads, the ones that end up having the lowest cost per sale, are the ones that you've been nurturing for a long time. But in a new market, how do you bring or in a bad market or any market, how do you bring new leads into your database to nurture without spending huge amounts of money. And if it's COVID or a bad economy and you can't go out and get it, how do you do it? Cross marketing is the way to go. So identifying the right strategic partner and then leveraging each other to build your lead list. The second is sharing cost. If there's two of you and you both have the same goal, you just cut your costs in half and you cut your workload in half. Right. So now there's caveats to that we'll talk about later. But if you can find the right partner, things can get real easy, real quick if you do it right. And then last, it allows you to gain credibility. So for example, there was years where we wanted to get into working with colleges and universities. And the problem with colleges and universities is they won't hire you unless you have experience in colleges and universities. But if you don't have experience and they don't hire you, how do you get it, right? We were able to get in through University of Southern California and other universities by having strategic partners that we joined with to help them with their work, with their part of their projects and piggyback on them. We delivered great work, but then we were also able to add to our credibility. So there's a number of benefits to strategic partnership if you're thinking outside the box.
Totally agree. And what I also like about the three of us is, Rachel, you're middle market and you're dealing with these institutions and different sizes. I tend to be more at the small business SMB side. And Christine, you came from corporate and you're now basically in a nonprofit. You're running an organization. So when you think about creating partnerships, why?
Well, I mean, I agree with so much of what Rachel said. Piggybacking off of that, number one is getting access to, new customers and new geographies that are not within your reach, and that's the number one thing that I think about when people approach me about partnerships is like, does it really drive, that additional accessibility to that? Also there's the opportunity to expand your portfolio. So I had an organization approach me about, partnering on this technology training program. And so my first question is like, is that in my wheelhouse? Is that something that's on my strategic plan for the next 12 months? If it's not, then it's an open door, right? So I think there's the opportunity to expand your portfolio and cross-sell and upsell into your customers. We all know you have to hit them. I'm sure Rachel knows the stats better than I do, but like you've got to get that messaging out to your customer, like prospects 7 to 8 times before bells go off and they think about contacting you. So this adds like another offer that you can put into your marketing engine. And then also drives up like a higher, customer lifetime value when you have more, services and products to support them with.
Agreed. I agree with everything you said. The one thing that I always say to my people about strategic partnerships is, well, and we're going to talk about how to pick them and how to run them and then how to measure them. But we're in the why zone. I always feel like one of the biggest whys of strategic partnerships, in addition to what all of you said, is higher close ratios, because when you are working with strategic partnership, there is an implied endorsement and you're driving referrals and referrals have your highest close ratio. So to me, I always keep my eye on that close ratio because, we're all marketers here, but the truth is, I think that's the one dial. If you can improve your close ratio, it's going to hit your bottom line exponentially bigger than filling more people in the top of your pipeline. So for me, strategic partnerships, because of what Rachel and Christine said, credibility, access, resources, expanded. It's also about, driving leads that are going to have a higher close ratio, which, I think is really, really important. Now, I want to talk about how to select strategic partners. But before we do, I want to go a little deeper on something that Christine kind of hinted at. Not everyone is a great strategic partner. And do not fall prey to the shiny object, because it's kind of flattering when somebody wants to partner with you. But is it the right partner for you? So, Christine, talk to us about how to select a strategic partner.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. If you start driving success and people in your network see it, they're going to want to ride your train.
Yeah, momentum.
So you need to really make them work for it, to get a coveted spot on your strategic alliance card. It's not just about like cross-selling or doing joint marketing, right? That's like the low end of it. You have to start higher up with is really evaluating is there a shared vision and value system based on how you're serving your customers and what you have to offer? And that needs to be the first checkpoint, right? Like not everybody is going to be the right partner. So that right there takes the funnel down when you think about what's really going to provide value to your mission and to serve your customers. You have to, then also look at what are all the strengths of the teams involved. And, there's like, Rachel meant about like cost efficiency with streamlining a lot of the operations. How can their operations, support or supplement what your team has? There may be like some really cool complementary fits there that can be strategic for you. Let's just say you have a small marketing team, you have a small budget for marketing, but they have this massive engine and they have it, well run, and that's a complementary. Maybe you have more of the tech side of it. And so, it's really trying to look at the different parts of the business that support the partnership to see what are the strengths and cons for each, and is there a really nice complementary fit. And a lot of people don't want to do that work up front. They want to just dive right into like cold calling or doing an event. But if the message isn't strong and the foundation of that partnership doesn't have legs, the rest of it is not going to be successful, right? The other thing that I want to say on this is it's so important to get buy-in from the top. Over my career of all these years working in partnerships, I've seen many different models, and the ones that are the most successful is when the C-suite is committed and invested in this structure, in alliances and partnerships. If you don't have that, it's an uphill battle, right? Because it needs to be a strategic initiative for the business. It needs to have staff on it. It needs to have funding. And once you can get all of that support and those resources aligned, it becomes a lot easier. So number one, start with your C-suite and get the buy-in that you need. And then number two, be really strategic about the organizations you want to connect with, and make sure that they can complement you well. The innovation also, didn't talk about that, but like, can you co-innovate together to build something new that the market doesn't have because of both of your, expertise? And then obviously, go through the other checkpoints about, what they have to offer.
Yeah, and
you keep going, but I gotta cut it there.
It's good. It's good. And I completely agree with the concept of making sure that there's a values match. So what I would say to all of you on this webinar and watching the recording is, if you have not identified your top values, that is your number one thing. So, if you are not aligned in with values, I do not believe that a collaboration can succeed. So, Rachel, as you think about how to select strategic partners, what would you add to what we've already said?
So I shouldn't say I always, but as a marketer, I come at this from a marketing standpoint. There's a lot of ways to do strategic partnership and think about it. But the first thing I'm looking for if we're going to co-market on something is, do we have a shared target audience? Are we both targeting the same people for different reasons, right? And so is my list or is my audience valuable to you, Donna, and vice versa, or you, Christine, and vice versa? That's number one. But from there, it's a lot about what Christine talked about. So I always want to know what's your win out of this? Let's be upfront. What's the win-win-win? We're all doing this for a reason, right? Otherwise, I'd be on a beach somewhere. So what's the win? What do you want out of this, Donna? What do I want out of this? Christine, what do you want out of this? And how are we all going to get what we want? And as long as we're really upfront about that, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about what I want. Well, then what's the point? We're talking about our goals here, right? So I need to know why your skin's in the game, why my skin's in the game, and are we all getting what we want out of this? Number one, that's what makes a good partnership. And then the second is, who's going to pull what weight? So I always look at a couple things. What are your marketing assets? So do you have a list? Are you going to put money in? Do you have, other assets that people who know how to market or who can get the word out? What are you bringing to the table? I've done many events over my career. I've done even big events where we've had 10, 15, 20 partners. Donna and I, we've run some of those together.
Oh my God, yes, we have.
Sometimes there were curse words involved. But you have to really, to Christine's point, Donna and I learned this the hard way. It's better to vet them up front and not be in it in the middle of this event where you're making promises and realizing people aren't able to bring to the table what they said they could, or aren't willing, or don't have the same motivation or values, right? So figuring out, what are you bringing to the table? So I'm gonna giving an example of this event. You know, my marketing team, when Donna and I split up the work for this event 5 years in, it's like clockwork.
The
My marketing
machine.
team does everything. On the marketing side, Donna's operations team, does everything on the operations side. I don't even know how to turn Zoom on. I mean, that's silly. I do technically, but like, I still can't figure out how to record it automatically, Donna. I have to call somebody. But like, you know, so you always have people in their different lanes and let them run it. The other thing is, you know, it can be different things. I have sponsors that come in who say, I want to be a partner with you. I don't have a lot to offer, but I'm willing to put down $2,000 a month to market this. Great. You know, like that's what
Yay.
your willingness is. You don't have the operations, but you have the cash. The other thing I'll say is, be okay with upfront conversations of saying, let's part ways now. This isn't a win for me anymore. This isn't a win for you anymore. Or, hey, you're not doing what you said you were going to do. Does it still make sense? And you can do that in a very professional and kind way to ensure that you still have a relationship with people, but make sure that if you set your goals up front together and everyone knows why they're in it, it's easier to then change gears if not everyone's getting what they want out of it.
Right. So agree with all of that. And I think also what's really important to the how to select strategic partners and how you get started is, in my opinion, it needs to be a written document. And I think if we have time at the end, I have a strategic partner proposal that I've used many times over in collaborating on events and this and that. And I also have a checklist of what you should look for, and I'll make sure that you get those as part of the follow-up if we don't have time to get to them. But write it out. And the thing is, especially if you are reaching up a bit to a strategic partner, right? Sometimes you're reaching up, sometimes you're reaching across, sometimes you're bringing someone else up. So especially if you're reaching up, that written document is super important, because I always say this in every regard: how you prospect will show your future clients how you do business. And so, you know, we're like the organized operational people. So like, I dot the I's and cross the T's, and we try and think of everything we possibly can before we start, because my goal in also what I want to bring to a strategic partnership is, I want to make it easy for the other people. So that happens at the proposal state, that happens on the execution state, that happens on the how do we measure success state. So you know, what I think is really, really important is that you have a written strategy with clear goals. And we're going to talk about this. We'll shift into what are some of the foundations for success. But, you know, kind of to what Rachel said, you have to have KPIs, because you have to know when it's not working. And sometimes you can tweak it, and sometimes you have to end it. But that's definitely part of it. So Christine, let's talk about, okay, we get into this partnership, you know, we're moving along. How do we ensure success? You know, you can't ensure success. What can we do to improve the probability of success and creating what Rachel said? It's a win-win-win. It's got to work for me, it's got to work for you, and it's got to work for our shared target market. So how, as we're living these strategic partnerships, what are we doing to try and ensure the greatest success we can?
This brings to mind that not quote, but the philosophy of like fail fast, right? You're
Right.
always kind of trying to set it up so that you can really get a good read. Is this going to work out? Obviously, that's why I said it's so important to have the foundation and the structure, like the support of the C-suite, and you're really running this as a part of the business. It's not just that like we'll fit all this stuff in when we can. So the more serious you come to the table, prepared, planned, right? Assign roles and make it very, like you said, make it super easy. What is each person responsible for? The due dates, whether it's a Gantt chart, or, you know, how are you going to manage all the to-dos and the tasks across the teams? What's the communication flow? You know, who's reporting to who? How are you reporting? Monthly, weekly, quarterly? You know, what are those goals? Setting the metrics, so important. Set those expectations up front. I also, not only do I set the, you know, it's metrics, but it's also like accomplishing the tasks too, right? Because there's hitting a goal, but then there's also doing all of the work. You could hit the goal without doing some of the work because you got lucky, but you want to make sure that everybody's holding up their part as well as hitting the goal. So those are two things to be monitoring. And then, I set the checkpoints up in advance. So they're already on the calendar, and it's like, we're going over these. And at that quarter, your participation is going to be evaluated, whether we continue or not. Like, you have to really be upfront and clear about your expectations. And I've had situations where, like, I'll go to a quarterly meet and say to the partner, you didn't do any of these things, and we have not accomplished our goal. So what's the problem? And then, you try to listen and work it out. And then it's okay, you have until the next quarterly meeting, because I have a line in my case where I pick one strategic partner per service, and I have a line of people that want to get that spot. I have to say to them, I already have a partner for that, right? I'm not going to drive competition with my strategic partners, right? But I say to them, you have one more quarter, you got to move these metrics, or we're moving you off the card and moving the next one in. And if you don't do that, they will find a way to take advantage of that and sometimes let it go. And you'll know right away. That's why I say, like, fail fast, get them off, and get the next one in.
Yeah, it's the same thing as having a weak member on your team.
Yeah.
You try to make it better, but you have KPIs, and you don't try forever. You try for a certain amount of time. You put them on a performance improvement plan, and you have to do the same thing with any of your relationships. So Rachel, when you think about nurturing these relationships and using them to move the needle, what are some of the success factors that you're trying to interweave into it?
So I love what Christine, what you said about, this is the plan, right? There's not like, I'll do this when I have time, or it's a favor. It's not a favor. So I tend to, when I sit down and do my marketing plan for the year for Paradigm or our clients, I then think, how can I add strategic partnerships to this to make it better, to make it a win-win? So it's not a strategy or a one-off. It is the strategy, right? It's part of the strategy. And that's how I look at it. And that's how I look at it for our clients as well. And so making sure everyone's skin is in the game and committed is important. So I love those KPIs. We also, for example, it started out kind of as a fun comical thing, but we do use it for accountability. Is for these roundtables, for example, we all have different links for registration. I don't know, Donna, whose link did you just put into the chat earlier for December?
Of course, I put mine.
I was thinking about that. I was like, gosh darn it, I have my link set up and ready to go. Don't click hers, click mine, guys. Like, you have set KPIs on who's bringing in people.
We do. Right.
Yeah. What's, who's selling, who's bringing what value, who's finding the speakers. So making sure that those KPIs are in place and reviewed. And sometimes you have a bad quarter and you give and take, and that's what good partners do for each other. Right. But you've got to set the expectation of mutual respect for sure.
I agree. And I want to come back to something that, kind of to what you were saying, and us having our own links, it's the phrase, you manage what you measure. So what do you need to measure within this partnership to determine, is it successful? But Christine, coming back to a kind of a concept that you talked about, and I just want to touch on this before we move on, is the idea of co-innovating with your partners, I think is, to me, that's a value. That is a value that I am either aligned with these people or not. So let's talk about, what does that look like? How does co-innovation happen?
Well, interesting. I'm going off the cuff here, but because you pulled a reaction out of me. That doesn't happen with every partner, even every strategic partner. Like, if I think of, like, let's say I have a wheel of like 7 partners that complement us. I don't have that with every single one, right? Some of them I have specifically for that market reach and that, increased customer base. But there are some, and the feeling, I'm sure everybody in here has had a meetup with somebody, whether you met them for the first time or you reconnected or you have a weekly call, and bells go off, ideas sharpen, like things just come into focus for you, right? When you have that with someone, those are the ones you got to double down on, right? They're the people where you're co-innovating through conversation. You take it to a whiteboard, you share thought leadership, you innovate, like, in your space, what gaps are missing for the customer, how do we solve those problems together? And it will just, in my case, I have always just notice that it evolves. But you have to be paying attention, for those just those relationships that have that extra spark. They're going to be the ones that I think help you to take this to the new level.
But if I could go back to one thing that you said, Christine, which I think is really interesting, and I think it's a point that I'm trying to make, is the way you just talked about it. Like, I have some partners who I'm using it like this, but like using to get into a new market. I have others. And I think that we have to have the conversations that blunt. So when I have a strategic partner meeting for the first time, or I'm vetting someone or they're vetting me, I'll say, listen, I'm in this for XYZ. I want to get into this market, but here's what I can bring to the table. And being really blunt about what am I using you for? Using is not the right word, but what are you using me for? What are we leveraging each other for? Because, and maybe it sparks into innovation, and I hope it does, but like being like clear about that, so nobody feels like they're being used, and it's a true partnership, just like you'd have an employee or a contractor, is the most important. Like, this is a business agreement, not a favor.
100%. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. And I think also when it comes to picking strategic partners, it's the same thing as hiring. To some extent, it's similar to hiring people in your firm. You're never going to hire you. Like, I probably spent the first 15 years of my business trying to find me. I'm not going to find me, so the truth is you have to find partners that complement
what you're not good at.
Right.
Like, Donna and I work so well together because I know what I'm not good at, and she's good at it, and she knows what she's not good at, and I'm good at it. So know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and who you want to work with around that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then just make sure that your marketing message is clear about that differentiation, right? I think that's the follow through of it.
Absolutely. And I think, absolutely to what you just said, Christine, the truth is, and Rachel says, first we have to have a shared target market. If we don't have a shared target market, it makes absolutely no sense for either one of us. But then, the second part is, what does it look like? How are we living this out? What is the win-win-win for everyone? And how are we going to divide and conquer and achieve what we're trying to achieve? And the other thing that I also feel like sometimes, and I'm sure this doesn't happen as much on a corporate level as on a SMB level, but one of the things you have to be careful of when you're talking to strategic partners is they're going to yes you. Yes.
100%.
And initially you get some traction. I call that the friends and family effect, because the first people who take you up on your offer are the people who love the hell out of you. So yes, so you have to get past that initial stuff to really measure what's actually going on in the strategic partnership. So Rachel, you and I have done a lot together, but how does this live itself out? So what I'd love to hear from both of you is tell me a story of, you created this strategic partnership. What was the process? What's it been like? So give us a little bit of a story of how you've brought this to life.
So I'll give you an example of this that turned into more innovation. So Donna and I started the Business Growth Roundtable during COVID, because we were all like, oh my gosh, we can't network. We can't get new leads. What's going to happen? We did a lot of other virtual events at the time too. We're successful. And we went to BIA and we said, we have an idea. You guys need more content that's virtual. We need more access to a greater, a networking group that we can share our expertise in. And they were like, great, come on, let's give it a shot. 5 years later, here we are. But it works because we each outlined what we needed. We each outlined the benefits and who does what. Fast forward 5 years, I do one other event with BIA, plus we just agreed to another one 5 minutes before this call that we're going to do next year. Everybody stay tuned, it's going to be great. And it's worked great for everyone involved, because BIA has gotten the content they need to bring expertise and education to their members. We've gotten a platform to stand on. We each are able to share the workload. So it really has empowered us to build up. My database has grown 5,000 names in 5 years, probably just as a result from this and a couple other events we do with BIA. We've gotten more brand awareness for a very small amount of money, a large amount of effort, but small amount of money. So it's created this great environment of growth. Now, the other day I was talking to Donna and we took it a step further, because we did an event. This is a good example in October of, planning your business for exit. And then we had business brokers and we had strategists to plan for exiting. And Every one of the people on that webinar, on that virtual panel, were my clients. I controlled the marketing for everyone. So talk about cross marketing. We had 4 different networks plus BIA, all cross marketing to the same similar target audience who wanted to accomplish similar things, but everybody on that call did something different that helped people to exit successfully. And that was like a huge opportunity because we were able to reach so many more people for one event. So the more people you can bring in who can, and I'm not saying it's because we controlled their marketing that they were successful. I'm saying that I could ensure that they had the proper marketing assets and impact and behaviors to make it successful. So you can make your partnership bigger and bigger as you grow. If you create a foundation, you can build it from there. And now we have people knocking on the door to be sponsors and partners for this event. So, and we bring in the people that make the most sense, just as Christine said, but it's able to grow more and more from there. So you can start with something really small that was, let's give this a shot and see if it works for 3 months. And now 5 years later, it's something huge. It's bringing in a ton of new blood to our database, a ton of exposure. And so we're seeing the impact now, even 5 years later.
Exactly. And we as time goes by, we've gotten better at knowing where to turn the dial up, where to turn the dial down, right? And what I love about what we do with this roundtable is our sponsors, we're not doing this for profit because that's not our goal. Our goal is to, create a lead list. So all of our sponsors gets reinvested into the advertising, which works for everyone. So you're able to layer, as you go on, you're able to layer more and more win-win-wins on top of win-win-wins. So it creates its own momentum. So Christine, I mean, you lived in the tech world and created all these partnerships, and now you have the WIT network, which is another, collaborative effort. Tell our audience a little bit about a situation where you've done this and, what were the steps and how did it turn out?
Yeah, I would say probably my biggest strategic alliance that I negotiated and managed was my last company before I came here full time, Optimizely. We forged a strategic partnership with Google. And what we did was we started with step 1. We were researching where were some of the gaps or who were some of our competitors that we thought, we researched our competitors, and we found that Google had a product that was competitive with us that we heard from folks they were going to be sunsetting. Okay, ding, ding, ding. This is an opportunity. So we reached out, we got their attention. They were 100% interested. We did all of the co-innovation, and that went really, really well. They loved it. We talked about how, our product would be a good fit for their customers. We knew that we wanted to get Google customers. We did not have that market. And so this was huge for us. It wound up turning into a $350 million deal in the first year. So we co-innovated, and then we built the plan, and something we didn't talk about was how to prepare all of your teams. We had to do sales training. We had to do partner training. We had to do marketing training. We had to do engineering training. We had to build playbooks. We had to build sales scripts. We had to build, all those materials so that everybody knew what was going on, right? Because this was massive. It was going to hit the waves. It got picked up by all the press. And so, we had to really prepare our internal team. So I want to make sure that's a flag for everyone. Once we did that, we started planning all of the events, all the marketing events. We started planning webinars in person. We also shared our customer lists and had an entire plan for the SDRs on our team and on Google. We got them to commit that their teams would then drive sales activities to bring customer meetings in. And then we set all those operational metrics and KPIs, and we set up our quarterly meetings, QBRs, and it was a great success. And it all, I'm not saying there weren't any bumps, but I learned a lot. And the president, the CEO announced at the end of that year, it was the top 3 strategic accomplishment for the business that year. So, I was really proud of that.
That's great. That's really
Yeah.
great. So, I mean, Rachel and I have done a lot of collaboration together, but I think one of my favorites is, and so I feel like, Google is like some of our
Mhm.
audience is like, I could never reach out to Google, and Rachel's things might be a little too big. So this is bringing it down to a SMB level. I joined a chamber and networked and started driving referrals, and then started to identify my centers of influence within that chamber. And I had a program that I offered that was an educational program, and I saw a gap at that chamber, and I thought, maybe I can co-market. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to whip through this this template that I use for strategic partners. Okay. Are you all looking at my screen? Can you all see my screen? Okay. All right. So I have a template. I'm a template girl. And now with AI, you can have AI write your templates. And I would say that that's another part of this is you can use AI to do your research, do a lot of research before you propose to anyone, because you want to know who your market is, and you want to start with that because that's your shared market. So how will we provide benefit to the organization? What's the value of that? How will we do it? Then what are they going to do for us, right? How are they going to help us? What's that going to look like? We write it all out. Here's what their members are going to get. So what are we going to do? What are you going to do? What are the members going to get? And then we have the kind of the execution of it. And in this one, I even give them a suggested idea of how we're going to market it. So super short version, I can send that to you. But what ended up happening in this particular case was referrals, centers of influence, create a partner. It landed me on the board of the organization, which I've been on for 10 years. But I made it so easy for them. I kind of like Rachel does with our partners for this roundtable. I gave them everything they had to say. To what Christine said, I had to train them to tee up leads for me so that I could close them. I was very specific about where this would need to get mentioned and what the timeline was and how we would do this and how we would share revenue. And it worked so well that I actually made some enemies within that organization, which had never happened to me in my life, which was like, wow, I must really be doing something right if I'm pissing people off this much. But it all worked out well. And kind of to what you said, Christine, the president of the organization mentioned this program and this collaboration as one of their accomplishments of the year. And the truth is, it allowed me to reach more people, help more people, drive more business, and it allowed them to add value to their organization. So, and I then took that template and used it with other member-driven organizations to do the exact same thing. So, who's our target market? What are the associations that they belong to? How can we do this? So, I think you have to be methodical, you have to be thorough, and you have to be flexible. But like we've said all along, how do we measure it? Yes, Christine.
Well, I just want to say to you, like, hearing that story and reflecting on my own story, when you're doing these things, it sounds like it brings you joy in your work and, pride in what you're doing, which is, satisfaction in your work, which goes a long way towards keeping us all happy and employed within our, organizations. But I think that can't be discounted when you feel really proud of what you've done. You're bringing value, you're helping like that just, you end your day and you're like, okay, I'm doing good stuff.
And you're building
Right.
trust, right? Like, now you go, not only could Donna go to other organizations and say, hey, this worked here, but you can go back to that same organization and and ask for something. I've done this with other, or even BIA. Hey, this went so well. Will you take my call to try something else? And they'll always say yes.
I'll
because,
take your call,
yeah.
right.
So
Right.
it's building that trust and credibility too.
I agree. So we're going to go to Q&A soon. So if you have questions, please do drop them in the Q&A segment of the Zoom platform here. But before we go to Q&A, from both of you, I'd like you, I say this all the time. I might say it on every roundtable that I facilitate, but knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. So if you were to say to our audience, these are the top 1 to 2 things I think you should do, what would they be? Christine, you want to go first?
Sure. I have 3. I'll keep them quick. One is If you haven't done this already, have a brainstorming session with your leadership team about your gaps. Do that foundational piece, even if you don't have an immediate need to go out and build a partnership. I think that's a really good thing to be aware of, so that as you're going through your day and you're networking, and by the way, I'm a big believer in like mindset sends things out into the universe.
100%. That's
So I
also why I
really
think it
do.
needs to be in writing.
That's
Because
right.
when you put it in writing, you're clear on your intentions, and then you can put your intentions in the world. And just like when you're thinking about buying a white car, you see all white cars,
Yeah.
same thing.
So then see what happens, right? I challenge everyone to do that and report back. But so number one is, I think it's a time well spent to do that. Number two, we didn't talk about this at all, and this could be another entire session, is about networking. You all should be dedicating so many hours a week, a day, a month to networking, whether it's online or out in person. And then that becomes part of your strategy to identify potential new partners. And then last but not least, if you have partnerships already in place, I encourage you, if you do not have those KPIs and those quarterly checkpoints scheduled, get on that immediately, because that is going to really help tighten up what you see happening with your partnerships.
I agree. Well said. Rachel, how about you?
So I would do two things. So first, to piggyback on what Christine said, and with networking, I would try to make a goal for yourself, 3 to 5 COIs a month. Let me try to meet with 3 to 5 centers of influence to see if they would be a good partner. You're vetting them. You don't have to tell them you're vetting them at the time, but do that every month and get a handful of potential partners. The second thing I would do is, when you're writing your 2026 marketing strategy and sales strategy, pick at least one campaign a quarter, and maybe it'll end up turning into the same campaign over and over again because it's so successful, that involves partnership marketing. Like, write it with, maybe you don't even know who the partner is yet, but write it with the fact in place that this is what the avatar of the partner that I want, and I'm writing the plan with a partner in mind. And then you can leverage those COIs to test it. But plan for it and identify the right partners. That's where I'm starting.
Love it. So I still come back to the one thing that I think is super important is identify your top values. So the C3 and C3 Works stands for Connect, Collaborate, Community. It's how we live and breathe. It turns out that it was our secret sauce, and that's why we rebranded around that. And my personal values are faith, impact, and community. So you could see how this really lines up with who I am. And I think that's the truth, is we have to make sure it aligns with who we are. So identify your values. The second thing I would say is, going back to what I said earlier, referrals, centers of influence, partners, nurture them. And that means, yes, it means networking, but I think you should be networlding. So when you have lunch with 4 people, invite 3 people who might like each other and have something in common. Taking that a step further, you could do that in person or virtually. I do quarterly, I call them rainmaker breakfasts. I'm in a semi-retired phase at the moment, so I'm super protective of my time, and I try to, use it in the most logical way. So once a quarter, I have a rainmaker breakfast, and I invite 12 people, and I make sure that no one is competing. These are people who I believe work at my level and think like I think and share my values. And I do it with a partner. So she's bringing people, I'm bringing people, we're cross-pollinating. So the event itself is a partnership, and we have clear metrics and what we do. But the goal of that is to identify partners. I want to be sitting at the table with the people who believe what I believe and want to work together to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. And so this, for me, is a very effective way of putting myself in front of 50 people a year in a thought leadership, strategic partner, center of influence kind of way. So that's my little 2 cents. So any thoughts or comments before we go to Q&A?
I might have been invited to the breakfast in a little while.
Well,
Yeah.
Vicky has.
Oh, all right, fine.
I figure it's
I need
Vicky's
to
job
get
more
on
than
one.
your job these days.
Yeah.
I had travel conflicts the last one.
Yes, I know.
I would like to go to one.
Okay. Well, I will make sure you get on. You both will get back on the list. And actually, we haven't duplicated. That's kind of what we've also been doing. We haven't duplicated. So now we're thinking, oh my goodness, we've done like 4 or 5 of these now. We're going to have some big event where we imagine the energy of getting those
Oh my goodness,
people in a room.
Yeah.
That's like super cool.
Great.
So that is on my 2026 marketing plan. Okay. So if you in our audience, thank you for letting us ramble. I know I tend to ramble a bit. So if any of you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A, but we have some from registration. And I like this one, and I'm going to throw it to both of you, and I'll tell you my thought on it. But Brandon Carroll, a partner at RK Partners, wants to know about incentives. Do you use incentives when referrals happen out of these strategic partnerships?
I don't love incentives.
I don't either, but that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah, I don't love it because now if it's like I'm selling energy, you know, and it's a commodity, that might be one thing. But, you know, when you're in a service industry or a high where you're selling like value, I don't, you know, I don't want you to refer me because of an incentive. I want you to refer me because you feel like the value we provided was so amazing and, you know, you respect it. And so I just don't think incentives work either in a complex sale environment.
Christine?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I really don't have incentives either. I mean, I do have some partnerships that have a cost sharing model. So like if you can, you know, if you can build that in, great. But I don't necessarily do like spiffs or incentives.
Here's why I think they don't work. Like if I'm doing an incentive because I got my nails done and I can get 20% off if I bring a friend, that's one thing. I'm getting my nails done. And I'll say to my friend, hey, we both get 20% off, or I get 20% off if you go to get your nails done, and they're happy with it. If I say to you, hey, Christine, I want you, I know this amazing accountant. They're going to change your life. But they're mostly going to change mine because they're going to give me 20% off my next, you know, my next business. You're not first of all, I don't want to give it to you because my word is everything. And so I'm telling you that this person who gives you service, who's going to have a huge impact in your day-to-day life, is valuable, and they're not, then I look bad. And so it's a longer term relationship impact as opposed to like a bad nail job. So I think that it really comes down to my word being respectable if I'm not referring somebody who only because I'm going to get a discount on them. So that's why I wouldn't do it. And that's why it doesn't work most of the time.
I agree. And I think, you know, we're talking about a win-win-win, a win for me, a win for you, win for the target audience. That's the payment. So that is the incentive. And for me, paying is not aligned with my values. So I could not see myself partnering with someone who felt that was super important.
Yep.
So that's how I feel about that. But listen, this is just our view of the world. You all get to do whatever you think is right. And I'm sure there's tons of content on there, you know, out there on how to use incentives. So we have a couple other really good questions here. What are some common red flags that signal a partnership might not be a good fit? I'm a big believer. Unfortunately, I'll be honest with you. I usually note the red flags after they've happened for next time. So that's my advice for you, is keep a list of red flags. But to the two of you, what are some of the red flags that kind of start rearing when things are going off kilter?
Well, I mean, we talked about so much of the what to do's that could be the red flags if you don't see it happening. If you can't find, you know, if you don't have the shared values, if you don't have that innovation that's going to make you stand out, if you're not seeing commitment from the team with regard to hitting their objectives, like making the calls, planning the events, you know, sharing the list, like if people just aren't showing up and they're not holding their weight, that's the biggest one. Well, probably the biggest one is just not being the right strategic fit. But number two, when folks just aren't doing their part and you're not seeing, never mind the results, but the work.
Yeah.
That's to me the biggest thing where they fail. Because like we all said, they are going to want to ride your coattails. They're going to want to jump on your success. Everybody wants to be a partner, but very few really turn up and do the work.
Yeah, for me, the red flag is when they start rescheduling meetings. That means I'm not important. Not cool. So to me, that's a red flag. I mean, you know, it happens, but if it happens repeatedly, even if it's nice, that just means this is no longer a priority. And I think that's something you have to, you know, when people show you who they are, listen.
So I think of it this way. I'm fiercely protective of the work we do for our clients, right? So if I'm bringing in a strategic partner to deliver on something for a client, we have to deliver Monday. There is no room. Like, you have to get it to me Thursday. We're going to go back and forth for 2 days and we're going to deliver it. Don't treat yourself any different. right? If it's not good enough for me to deliver to a client, it's not good enough, and I'm getting the feeling that I don't trust you, that I don't trust the deliverables you're bringing in, that, you know, it's bumpy, then it's not good enough for us. So think about it as, would this meet your expectation of delivery when you're delivering it to somebody? And if you're not getting that for yourself, then it's a red flag right off the bat.
Agreed. Well, ladies, I thank you for your time on this. You know, to me, this is a crazy thing that if a company wasn't doing this, especially, you know, Rachel, you know, we're in the professional service field. And I think that, you know, if you're not putting strategic partners into your strategic planning each and every year, I think you're really missing the boat. I mean, I'm happy to jump on a call and help anybody if they want to kind of get going. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And Christine, thank you for your time, talent, and insights. Rachel, as always, you know, it's fun batting things around with you.
Rachel, thanks for showing up today.
Yeah, and so again, want to invite all of you to join us in December for our economic outlook. And we already have our first quarter laid out for 2026, and we'll continue to bring you this content each month. So thanks, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you at the economic outlook.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for having me.